And good evening to our fellow listeners and followers. Tonight is Sunday, October 6th at 8:40 p.m. This is Federico Lines of States Rights Radio and
Seth Hancock of Seth Hancock Reports. And tonight's episode, Appalachia versus Midwest, the VP debate discussion and federal disaster aid dependency. So I'm going to be talking about the vice presidential debate and what these two clowns had to say. Much like the presidential debate, I didn't watch it. I probably have seen a little bit more of the vice presidential debate in clips because as much as I don't agree with what they had to say, it was not as personal. You know, the presidential debate was kind of like just too I don't know. Trump and Harris were more of clowns from what I can tell. So I could actually stand to listen to Vance and Waltz as much as I loathed what most of they had to say. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about from the debate. But I think, and above all, with every one of the issues that they talked about at the debate, I think going back to Davy Crockett and Not Yours to Give is a good way to put it. Like Vance and Waltz want to take our money to do a whole lot of stuff that they don't have authority to do, and it's not theirs to give. And that starts with, I think, an important topic right now is the hurricane and the Hurricane Helene, and there's a lot of devastation that's gone on there. I want to see them get the help they need, and that starts by getting the government out of the way and stop looking towards the government to help. But unfortunately, we live in a country where both sides believe that it's the duty of the federal government to come in and clean up, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem. And, I know that we're calling the segment Appalachia versus Midwest, which, Vance is part of Ohio. Ohio's, the Midwest. But since he is claiming hillbilly elegy, we can make him part of Appalachia, even though he's from the Midwest too. But, when I'm hearing these two buffoons, and the same thing with Trump and Harris when they talk, and they talk with a sense of, dependency and trust, and that we should be beholden from the federal government, that really insults my intelligence. Really is very frightening to hear this. Reagan said these words, and yet Reagan betrayed these words when he said that the four dangerous words is, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you. When Reagan expanded that government and expanded that fear of government increased. So, when I hear Vance and Waltz and Trump and Harris speak, and in the sense of, aid or education or healthcare, it's not up to the federal government to tell you what to do. When I see the horrific actions, what happened with Hurricane Helene, and then we're going to have one here in Florida in moments time. I think it's going to be Hurricane Milton, or I forgot that's the name going to be. It should be the responsibility of the individual or the state and local government. It shouldn't be the federal government, which, because you cannot have, the federal government cannot give privilege to one state or one citizen and not other citizens. So I'm very upset with people like Rand Paul, where he states that, there's no money for schools, there's money for, there's no money for this, no money for that. But he asked President Biden to send FEMA aid when Kentucky was suffering from tornadoes. You have a state government, you have a governor, you have a legislature, you have a court system. Use it. For God's sakes, you have that sovereignty. Why is your congressional delegation being so dependent of the federal government? It's disgusting. It's immoral, and it goes against all the principles that the framers intended. So, quite frankly, when I hear these four chumps talking about that, I turn it off because I don't want to hear that you're coming to help. That scares me. Every time the government says, I'm here to help you, you're looking for something, and I don't want it. So, stay away. So, it's the continuation of the same crap since, long before. And quite frankly, I wish people would wake up to that, because we deserve better than what we have now. We don't deserve Trump. We don't deserve Harris. We deserve somebody better. But unfortunately, there isn't. So that's why I'm still abstaining, because I am not going to give them my vote, because I haven't found anybody better.
Well, yeah, I mean, on that, you could do what I'm going to do. I'm going to write myself in.
All right, James Madison or Thomas Jefferson.
But I know, in all seriousness, on this, and first off, it was quite humorous. The moderators, inserting their own bias into the question on the hurricane. Instead of really talking about the hurricane, the moderators used the hurricane to push climate change nonsense. And that was the question they asked about, is how climate change is creating hurricanes. And of course, Vance and Waltz both believe in the climate change lies, and they really believe that the government needs to get in there. But with regards to the hurricane and relief, Vance said we want as robust and aggressive as a response as we can get to save as many lives as possible. Yeah, no, we do not want a robust and aggressive federal response. We want people on the ground helping each other out, and I want people through their own goodwill to give money to relief efforts. I do not want the government stealing money and giving it to them. And the same thing Walt said, we're still in that phase where we need to stay there, and the federal government needs to be on the ground there. Let me give you an idea of what happens with this mentality that the federal government is supposed to be the ones that are helping. I saw a story of a helicopter pilot, a guy from, I believe he was from Tennessee, so he's down in that general region, and he has law enforcement background, and he has worked with relief efforts in the past, but he owns his own helicopter. So he went in, he decided he was going to help on his own, not funded by taxpayers. He was just a private citizen wanting to help. And he was in the process of saving an elderly couple. He was able to save the woman, and get her. He didn't have, he had to take them one at a time. So he takes the woman, gets her to safety. And as he drops the woman off, the local firefighter, with orders from FEMA, came in and told him, "You're not allowed to go back. You're interfering with our operations. We're the ones who have to." The FEMA and the local government working together are the only ones that are allowed to save people. And so they basically left the guy had to fend for himself. I don't know whatever happened to him. But the government literally shut down a guy who was privately on his own helping to save people. And the guy, there was an interview, and he talked about he checked out the status of air traffic. He didn't want to interfere, so he made all the arrangements beforehand to make sure that he was allowed to go in, and so he knew that he had the right to go in initially, but then once he actually saved somebody, that's when the government came in and said, "Oh no, you're not allowed to do that. It's only government who's allowed to help." This is what happens when we become dependent on the government. And it's really a disgusting story to see a guy on his own trying to help people out being stopped. And that's what we get when we rely on the federal government to clean up disasters. We need to be dependent on our own selves and the goodwill of others, not the force and theft of government.
Yeah, that really, you brought out that story, and there's similar stories like that. I believe there's also stories out of New Orleans in 2005 with Katrina, where FEMA came in and started to take control of local and state police jurisdictions, and they did nothing. They absolutely did nothing, and it created looters. It created a massive crime wave through through many various districts in Louisiana and New Orleans. So it's I would like to, because I think during Katrina, Governor Blanco, she passed. I think she passed away like 2 years ago. I forgot when she passed away, but Governor Blanco of Louisiana accepted federal funds. A massive influx of federal funds through FEMA, while Governor Barber from Mississippi, he also received a few federal funds, but it was mostly Mississippi funds that cleared the way of cleanup in Mississippi that also got affected. People don't realize it, but Katrina damaged more the areas of Mississippi than New Orleans, than Louisiana. So, but yet they only want to show the Louisiana, the aspects of Governor Blanco requesting that help, but also keep in mind that Katrina was a very strong storm of a Hurricane 4 nature, but yet what really caused more damage was the federal government Corps of Engineers, the levees. The levees were, they were not raised in time, and then when Katrina came in, it just blew them off. So again, here comes the actions of the federal government, being useless and incompetent as it always has been. So it's always been the fault of the federal government of the things that states have come by. So to hear these stories of individuals helping people, but yet being stopped by federal government officials from FEMA or wherever. It's sad that we are still relying, because also the media doesn't want to share that story. I don't know if Fox News shared it, but CNN probably won't share it, or MSNBC won't share it. So it's very sad to see that the media wants to also portray the federal government as a savior, but it's really not. It's really not in the Constitution to have the federal government be this savior in arms to come and save. It's not their duties. The federal government has other duties, other responsibilities that people should know about this. I'm bringing this up because I know that in the debate they were bringing up, of course, the abortion issue, which, again, I don't understand why, but, because it's a hot topic issue. And both of them, one of them says it's a states' rights issue. The other one says it's a federal issue. How about it's neither? How about you look, I know Seth and I will probably going to disagree on this, and that's fine. But what about we look at the Ninth Amendment? It's a health care issue. It's a health issue. The same thing with marriage. It's a marriage issue. It's an individual issue. Why don't people look up to the Ninth Amendment where it's supposed to be? And that's where that issue is. It's not a 10th Amendment issue. It's not a 14th Amendment issue. It's a Ninth Amendment issue. Leave the individuals alone, because certain rights belong to the people, not to any government, both federal or state. But this is the ignorance and the arrogance of two federal bureaucrats not understand. Well, one is a federal bureaucrat because it's a senator, the other one's not. But two bureaucrats that really, I have no faith in them because A, they probably never read the Constitution. B, they probably don't even know what that is. So, I have no faith in them because they're pointing fingers to what's easiest for them. Oh, it's a 14th Amendment issue. Oh, it's a 10th Amendment issue. No, it's neither. It's a 9th Amendment issue. It's an individual rights amendment issue. So, if they cannot distinguish a simple 9th Amendment issue, they can't simply, they'll never, they'll always side that it's a federal government responsibility for everything. Both Vance and Walz, both Trump and Harris. And again, that's why I will probably not vote for them, because they don't respect my issues or my stance.
Well, it's ultimately, and yes, we have a bit of a disagreement on the issue itself. But ultimately, it shows that the issue is being used specifically for votes.
Yeah,
and that's what for Vance and Walz. They're just trying to get votes, and they don't really care about the issue. They care about the votes that they can get by whatever stance they decide to take. And that was Vance's statement, was that, well, he has changed his opinion on abortion because of he's seen these referendums, like in Ohio, in his home state of Ohio. The people of Ohio voted to have abortion access on demand, and so if the people want this, then that's what he's got to be for, because he believes in direct democracy. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to work. I want $1 million. So I think the federal government should give me $1 million. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. We just are kind of, it just shows you, though, what these two characters are about. It's about themselves and their own egos, and it's not about trying to, it's not about justice for the unborn. It's not about, it's not even about the women that they claim they want them to have the right to choose. It's about getting votes, and that's what these two characters are about, and that's all they're about. And that should disgust everybody, whatever your thoughts are on any issue, that we just have a bunch of egotistical, arrogant people running for office, and but people are dependent, and so that's why they will continue to listen to these debates and think that their vote matters, and ultimately we're gonna get the same thing regardless of whether it's Trump or Harris in there. That the federal government's gonna get bigger, and we're gonna lose more of our rights. But it's and this is across the board on whatever issue they were talking about. Gun laws. They talked about mass shootings and school shootings, and Vance's response to that was, we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers. What are you talking about? Schools, and I'm fundamentally opposed to any government schools, but if we're going to have them, they're a state issue. It's not a federal issue. So no, we don't need to make the schools more secure. We need to keep the federal government out of it and let state and local governments deal with whatever issues they have. And then, of course, Walz, on the other hand, is all for red flag laws, and he's all for taking the guns. And
the former teacher.
Yeah, and so it's both sides, and you can see it in every issue, is we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to have the federal government involved. This is the problem, and I wish people would start waking up to this.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's always this we thing, and I'm like, who's this we? I mean, we who? Despite I just want to jump back what Vance said about the Ohio referendum on abortion, that that he will support it because it's democracy. No, it's not. It's not democracy. It's the people's vote on the Ninth Amendment. It's not a democracy thing. It's a representative republic thing. It's people engaging in a plebiscite vote, as they did in ancient Roman times, where the people get to vote on what it's their right, it's their freedom. So, this thing where, he sounds like a Wilsonian progressive that, I used to thought Democrats were the only Wilsonian progressives, but now I see Republicans love this democracy and votes for democracy and democratic government. Well, they turn to Woodrow Wilson all of a sudden. And I'm like, what? You guys are complete jackasses. So, it's not a democracy thing that you have a referendum. It's based on the Ninth Amendment. And I'm glad somebody in Ohio, I know, people, think that abortion is murder and whatnot. I mean, it's a health issue affecting the woman and also affecting the man who is engaged in that relationship. It's a decision that both of them, how come? It's so funny. How come liberals say it's a women's rights issue and we want the government out of that issue, but it's okay for government to interfere in healthcare, in healthcare insurance and all that kind of insurance? It's the same thing. We want government out of it completely, whether you're a liberal or conservative, liberal or Republican or Democrat. I really can't stand that hypocrisy of both sides, that they want government out of women's wombs, but it's okay to have government inside dictating what policy you buy. It's not okay. And on the sense of gun ownership and gun rights and gun control, on these school mass shootings and mass shootings, again, you're right, Seth. Who is this we? We don't need a federal gun background check or federal gun control. We need individual gun control. We need state control, local control. It's what happened in Newtown, what happened in Florida here in Sanford. No, not Sanford. Parkland, yes, thanks. Parkland, and Columbine. It's a state issue. It's a local issue. Yes, of course it's going to make the national news, but, you need to let them resolve it. It's the same thing as a disaster aid. You need to let them resolve it. That's why, again, each state has a legislature. Each state has an executive. Each state has a court system, has its own judicial process. You need to let them handle it. You cannot let the federal government come in and interfere just like that, because it's going to create more chaos. As I mentioned before the show with Seth, look at what happened in 1850 with the creation of the fugitive slave law. It created divisions. It created hatred. And who began it? The federal government. People, this is who you are putting your trust in. It's a government that wanted to enslave more people and capture people trying to reach their freedom. That's, it's ludicrous to think that people want the federal government in their hands and want to be beholden when it's the federal government that's trying to control you and ruin you, like they did in 1850. So, folks, for God's sakes, stop being dependent from the federal government, whether it's schools or gun control or healthcare issues. Stop having the federal government control and stop listening to the Appalachian moron and the Minnesota football coach or whatever coach he is. I'd rather have Dan Quayle than Tim Walz, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I mean. And Dan Quayle can spell potato.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can this guy spell potato? Potato?
But it's just issue after issue. It's about you'll listen to them, and a lot of it also starts with the moderators. The moderators, they set up these questions to be about something, and basically, force the debate to go in some way, but the politicians are there to comply, and like Waltz and Vance also addressed child care. I mean, if there's anything that you do not want the government involved in is raising your kids, right? Isn't that what conservatives always say? But they brought it up. The debate moderators couch it in, there is a child care crisis in this country. What are you talking about? There's a child care crisis. Who are you to I mean, but it's about, do we need national, how much, the question was, how much national paid leave do we need? Not whether or not we need national paid leave, it's how much do we need? Of course, Waltz's response is we have to negotiate it with the businesses. Okay. And he also accused Trump of wanting to bust up unions, which is an odd thing since Trump had the unions at his convention. But then J.D. Vance, talking about we need to have a national plan that makes sure that families have choices. Which what does that mean? What choices are you going to make from Washington? How about freedom? How about freedom where the government stays out? You're going to have an abundant amount of choices when you have freedom. But no, both of them are absolutely on board with we need to have some national child care model. But the people want that. I mean, and nobody pushes back on this. It's really quite disgusting to me. But again, both Waltz and Vance are in agreement. We need to have a national model, and one says we need to negotiate with the businesses. The other says we need to make sure that there are choices. And I'm sitting here saying we need you guys to butt the hell out.
Yeah, all thanks to LBJ's Great Society on Head Start, now we have a child crisis problem. And yet again, that's also in due part because, again, the federal government butts in on the family issue, butts in on birth control and family control. What about individual control? I mean, people, they're not dumb. They can know there's an issue. And, it's a sad that, both the federal government maintains these slums, these, whatever people live in, whether it's white or black, but they're maintained down. And, welfare sees no color nowadays. It really doesn't. So, welfare affects everybody, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. Welfare sees no color. The only color they see is green. And now we're seeing all over now with the hurricanes, with disaster relief fund, with the COVID stimulus fund. I remember a friend of mine told me that he had a friend down in Mississippi and he was as white as he can come, and he quit his job because Obama kept sending him stimulus checks and relief fund. I mean, and he's white, and Obama was the first black president. So, welfare is no longer a black issue or a Hispanic issue. It's a multicultural thing that sees no color. And, this is where whether it's domestic spending on the federal side or international spending on the federal side, I'm opposed to it. I want to stop giving funds to international nations. Ukraine has to solve that issue with Russia on its own. If it wants to involve the international community, that's fine. Then go to the EU and go to anyone else for aid and relief. But we should not we should not give them funds. And Trump just came out and says that he's going to make Israel great again by giving them funds. So domestic spending or foreign spending, I'm against, because that's not how it's written in the Constitution. That really it's not. So, I really find it very insulting when, I see white people crying for federal aid relief fund. Well, what about, you going to Home Depot and you clearing up your house or something to do something for yourself, for your benefit, and stop relying on either it's a state government or local government or federal government. What about yourself and try to, relieve it on your own. God forbid if a hurricane does come in Florida, I'm gonna do it on my own. I don't want federal government assistance. I really don't, because I'm not gonna be beholden to federal government assistance. I'm really not. It's like, for example, when the TARP relief fund came out after the crisis, the 2008 housing crisis, and the federal government released TARP and went up to little banks and big banks and start giving away this money. Well, I knew of a bank up in Hagerstown, Maryland, a very private small bank, and the owner of the bank says, no, I'm not going to take it. And he was forced to take it. So I said, okay, I'm going to put it over here. And then when it's time to give it back, I'm going to give it back in full. I don't want it. I never wanted it. And that's how it's supposed to be. We cannot accept these handouts from the government, because in the end, it's going to create more problems, more issues. And people need to understand that. So when I see these elections, or when I see these candidates that only talk about themselves and only talk about in the we person and not in the you person, I see a problem. And I don't want no part of it. And that's why, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to abstain, because I don't see a win with either of those two candidates, Harris or Trump. I don't see it. I didn't see it with McCain, Obama, and definitely not with Romney or Obama, or Trump and Hillary, or Biden and Trump. I don't see it. I don't see a win for me. So I'm not going to vote for either of them. I want government out of my house, out of my car, out of my life. So people out there, I hope you do the same, because if not, they're going to be on you forever if you accept 1 cent from the federal government.
Yeah, and, think about it this way. I don't want the government... I don't want the government stealing my money to begin with. Yeah. And the people in the hurricane-affected areas, think about how much more money you would have if the government didn't steal from you in the first place. How much more money you'd have there right now to help yourselves out. But it's just... The government is just the problem. It really is. And they leave you in this perpetual state of fear that if we don't have the government there to help, who's going to help each other out? I think people in this hurricane are going to help, but like I detailed with that story of the helicopter pilot, there are people that are ready, willing, and able to help. And they're being told no, because the government needs to be the one viewed as the saviors, when in fact they're not doing anything to help. But they keep you in this perpetual state of fear. Even this debate, again, talking about the moderators, they opened the first the first question was about Iran, and basically they warned that Iran is weeks away from having a nuclear weapon, which this is, by the way, I've found headlines from 1984, so basically my entire life they've been warning that Iran is weeks away from a nuclear bomb. At some point, do we start saying, yeah, no, I don't believe your lies anymore? But, they talk about Iran weeks away, keep you in fear that... North Korea. North Korea. I mean, North Korea is a joke. Why would anybody be scared of them attacking? I mean, look, their guy is a buffoon, too, but they have no capabilities of attacking the United States. We don't need to worry about North Korea. But they push these panic alarms to get the people to demand more government, and we need to stop living in fear. I am not worried about Iran. Iran is not our problem. And I'm not worried about them getting a bomb either, because, like I said, I found headlines from 1984. Like, I was born in 83, so it was basically my entire life. They've been saying Iran is weeks away from a nuclear bomb, and at this VP debate, they literally said what they've been saying for 4 decades now, that Iran is weeks away from a nuclear bomb. And by the way, why wouldn't you want to have a nuclear bomb for deterrence yourself if you're Iran? So it's like it's just all fear and panic. Get the government in there because we need the government, because we're all afraid. Stop being afraid. These guys are not going to save you. You need to save yourself. You need to protect yourself. You need to take care of your own life, and you should want that. But they just push fear. It's just fear, and both sides do it. And we should be demanding liberty, not fear.
Yeah, no, you're right. They've always been pushing fear. Whenever it's a central form of government, they're always pushing fear. They've done it, during Andrew Jackson. They pushed fear against the Native Americans. That's why they were pushed away with the First World War, Second World War, the whole Red Scare. Oh, my God, if they push the buttons, we got to build bunkers. Whereas, now there's 90 miles off our coast in Florida. And, it's all fear-mongering that it's not, it's really, I find more fear in our own government with the NSA than the People's Republic of China. I don't want my government spying on me. Yeah, I don't want China spying on me, but they're not going to do anything. I find more fear about my government spying on me than the Chinese. So, this thing about Iran weeks away, yeah, you're right. They have been saying that. Even in 2004, they've been saying that. And it's ridiculous. They made a peaceful treaty with Iran, and, they haven't done anything. Now Israel's kind of blowing it up because they're invading Lebanon and Hezbollah and all that. I mean, that's their problem. If Israel wants to, be wiped out from the map, I mean, that's their problem. I mean, that's not my problem, and particularly not my funds to go help Israel. I really don't care. And the same thing, I don't want domestic funds helping North Carolina or Florida or wherever, because that's my funds. But it's all sanctioned under the robbery amendment on the 16th. It's a sanctioned robbery amendment. They're stealing my money to pay for somebody. It's like they're taking away from Peter to pay Paul. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So, I mean, I know that whoever wins this election, whether it be Trump-Vance or Harris-Walz, is going to be the same bullshit you've been hearing for years and decades. So, if you do listen to us, just don't vote. Don't pay attention, please, for God's sake. Just, don't pay attention, because they're both idiots. I don't know who will be better. I think they're going to be... I don't know who's going to be better. I don't think one is better than the other, to be perfectly frank. So my last comment is just stop falling into this beholding of the federal government. Stop believing their fear-mongering stories, because it's not true. And stand up for yourself and for your liberties across in your state, your local communities, and stop being beholden to this general government. Stop it, for God's sakes. And yeah, what's your last statement on this whole debacle?
I just say, you got to stop allowing them to use fear to manipulate you, and that's exactly what it's being done for. It's to manipulate you and to demand more government, and you should value liberty and running your own life. That's what you should value. And these politicians are there to make you pervert your values into thinking that what you need is a political savior, a political solution. You should be demanding freedom and the government staying out of your life. We've got an upside down system that where the government is involved in every aspect of our life, even though they don't have authority to be involved. it really, the government has a very finite and small role, and it's to, make sure we have a justice system. There should be some laws, very few laws. We should want theft to be illegal and the government to prosecute. We should want murder to be illegal. Obviously, there's some things that we need the government to prosecute and institute justice for. But outside of that, they're supposed to stay out of our lives. And again, just the few issues that I listened to from this debate, the questions from the moderators, the responses from the candidates, they want you to think that we must have government, and we don't. We don't need government in every aspect of our lives. We need a very small government that takes care of a few things, but relatively stays out of our lives. And we've lost that, and we've lost any movement that is calling for that. That's what conservatives used to always call for, but they don't anymore. They want Donald Trump to get in there and save them from the dastardly Democrats. And, we can take care of ourselves. We just need to stop listening to these people. And again, didn't listen to a whole lot of the debate, but listened to enough to know that these guys are jokes, and just don't pay too much attention to it. Take care of your own life. We'll see what comes with the election. It's only a few weeks away, a month away, but it's a crap show. So maybe if there's any entertainment value, that's about it. But I'm not that entertained, but some people might be.
Yeah, it is. It is an amateur theatric show on CBS or NBC or Fox or One American News. So, yeah, I rarely will not pay attention to it as well. So, but some people are, and they want to. And hey, that's if you want to be bamboozled by these two clowns or these four clowns, then that's your prerogative. But don't come crying to me when things are not going your way, which apparently they will not. But anyway, so we'll see. As Seth said, it was only a month away from the the presidential election day and electoral election day, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see you next weekend on Sunday or Monday. And with that note, have yourself a great night.
Hey, good night.